We lead off with some breaking news. Hamas political leader Ismail Haniyeh has been assassinated in Tehran. Hamas said in social media posts that Haniyeh and his bodyguard had been killed at their residence in the country. No one immediately claimed responsibility for the assassination, but suspicion immediately fell on Israel, which had vowed to kill Haniyeh and other leaders of Hamas over the terrorist group's October 7th attacks on Israel. DW reporter Alyona Murashova is following this breaking news. Alyona, what do we know about this attack so far?
So what we have so far are two separate statements. One is from Iran's Revolutionary Guards and the other one is from Hamas. So I'll quote the first one. Iran's Revolutionary Guards say that the residence of Ismail Haniyeh, the head of the political office of Hamas Islamic Resistance, was hit in Tehran. And as a result of this incident, him and one of his bodyguards were killed. Then we also have Hamas. They confirm this attack and they blame Israel right away. They call it a Zionist attack, and I'm quoting here. They also warn of grave escalation, and they also call this attack a cowardly act that will not go unpunished. So talking about Israel, of course, as you said, we haven't gotten any confirmation yet, and we shouldn't expect it in really short time. Usually they don't confirm it right away. So, and Israel has been trying to actually target Haniyeh for a while after the October 7th terror attack. And apparently we still need to wait for the confirmation, but according to Iran's Revolutionary Guards and to Hamas itself, he was successfully targeted. And I also want to remind you that Haniyeh was in Iran for the inauguration of Iran's new president, and he was targeted there in his residence.
All right. Alyona Murashova with our news team. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And for more on this, we're joined by Benham Ben Taleblu. He is a senior fellow at the Foundation for the Defense of Democracies, and he joins us from Washington. Benham, welcome back to the show. Explain this to us. How significant is Haniyeh's death?
Well, it's great to be with you again. This is a huge political setback for the Iran-backed terror group known as Hamas. Haniyeh, as you know, was in Tehran, where the patron of that group actually resides. Haniyeh had met with Iran's supreme leader and Iran's ninth president, the newest president, Masoud Pezeshkian, right after being sworn in. Mere hours before, you couldn't have a starker contrast. He was hobnobbing with senior political, religious, and military officials from the Islamic Republic, seated next to members of the constellation of terror and proxy forces that Tehran calls the Axis of Resistance, chanting death to America and death to Israel. And then hours later, this news, as you had just reported, is breaking. I think if you had to contrast this with the other reported assassination that we had spoken about earlier today, a Lebanese high-ranking military official in the suburbs of Beirut, that one is designed to throw a terror group off balance by robbing them of a certain capability by targeting a person that has a particular military aptitude. This is designed to send a strong political message. And things could go 50-50 right now with the rest of the Gaza war, as well as the foreign patron Iran, because this attack did happen on their soil.
Should we assume then that Israel is behind this assassination? We know that they've targeted top Hamas leaders. They've made no secret about that.
I do believe in this case it's quite possible to connect the dots. I'm not sure if the Israelis will ever come out and potentially confirm this story. They may have a political rationale to do so a bit later on, but A, the reporting timeline right now is quite tight, and B, they don't always confirm these things. But as you mentioned, there is a certain trend line here. But even if we zoom out, there's a different picture. And there's a picture not created by analysts or anything else. There's a picture related by a former intelligence minister in Iran, Mr. Younisi, if I'm not mistaken, where he talked about how punctured the state's security services were. And I believe he even said that no Iranian official should sleep soundly at night. Ever since he said that, and this was many years ago, well before COVID, you've seen a whole series of things go bump in the night, assassinations of people even in uniform. on Iranian territory, targets kinetic and cyber against Iranian military and nuclear facilities. So this seems to be the latest in keeping with that trend. And many pointed a finger during all of those assassination attempts and espionage and cyber and sabotage operations at a foreign intelligence service with this capability and intent. And when you put all of these together, Israel is most likely the actor behind it.
You said this assassination sends a statement. What will it actually mean for Hamas and its organization?
Well, in the Gaza Strip in particular, it could mean two things. One, it could lead to the expending of the military capabilities and assets and kind of the coming out from using some of the human shields and embedment within some of the refugee populations in the Gaza Strip, and an expending of the military forces and assets they have, or it could lead to greater external involvement to bail out Hamas if indeed the acts of resistance cease, that piece is about to be taken off the chessboard and the Israelis double down, trying to press their advantage. Again, things could go quite literally 50-50 right now. It could lead to a major uptick that pushes the Israelis back, or it could lead the Israelis or provide the Israelis the opportunity to take the advantage and militarily double down, because this was a politically stunning move, quite like what happened in January 2020 in Iraq when the U.S. killed Iran's chief terrorist and head of the Quds Force, Major General Qasem Soleimani.
Are there successors waiting in the wings for Haniyeh, and are they likely to be more militant, less militant? What are we likely to see?
It's unclear, but listen, this is the Middle East. Things can always get much worse, not better. But I will say this, there is, again, a sharp contrast in the logic of going after a political leader of a terrorist organization versus someone with a certain localized capability. The intent, if one is looking to cut off the head of the snake here, is not to rob them of a certain warfighting capability. It's that stunning kind of political effect that is usually followed up by something else. So again, all eyes should be on the region right now, not to assess political secession and what may happen with a potentially different Secretary General of Hamas, in particular what may happen in Doha, where that group does have its political headquarters, but really what will happen on the ground in the Israel-Gaza war, as well as on all the other kind of connected fronts. For example, a couple of hours ago, for the first time ever, there was a report that Iran-backed Shia militias in Iraq had fired for the first time ever since October 7 a ballistic missile towards Israel. So there could be an intensification of the campaign outside of Israel against that country in the aftermath of this news.
Can you tell us a little bit more about Haniyeh and how his role differed from maybe the military structure that was still within Gaza?
I tend to believe that some of the cleavages or stem charts that exist in Western analytical and academic circles about a political wing versus a military wing is a bit more projection and us foisting a distinction without a difference onto some of these group structures. I know, for example, that Haniyeh's distance from, you could say, the battlefield does not mean he would be any less involved, or does not mean he would be any less involved or not have any kind of knowledge in operations, particularly operations that ended up becoming the October 7 terrorist attack. This person oversaw the structure, the funding, the channel, the pulling away of money and assets and resources to make Hamas what exactly it is, which is this resilient terror group in the Gaza Strip.
And what about Iran itself? This happening on the eve or on the just in the immediate aftermath of the inauguration of its president. What does it mean for this country? What kind of statement does it send about them? And as you've already touched on, their security capabilities.
I think in a post-April 13, April 14 world, and that was really a world in which the Islamic Republic, which has fought many of its covert and shadow and proxy wars from a distance and without kind of an overt kinetic element with Israel, now there's always a non-zero chance after the regime fired drones, cruise missiles, and ballistic missiles directly at Israel. There's always the chance that it could step out of the shadows again. And the analytical question has been, what could be the trigger to get them to step out of the shadows? If I had to guess, this wouldn't be it. Again, it's very different to go after a whole series of IRGC commanders in Syria and spill Iranian blood and have that be a different threshold for the use of force than to go after one element of Iran's acts of resistance on Iranian soil. But nonetheless, because this act did happen on Iranian soil, there likely is going to be a significant Iranian element in the response, whether that's just quarantine to rhetorical or more financial and material support to its proxies. That remains to be seen. But the fact that the IRGC and many semi-official news outlets were so quick to confirm this news tells you that the regime is in the business right now, wading through what has happened and is probably thinking through a response.
All right, that's Benham Ben Taleblu with the Foundation for the Defense of Democracies. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we go over now to DW correspondent Rebecca Ritters in Jerusalem. Rebecca, good morning. This news is still quite fresh. Are there any reactions there so far?
Yeah, this is incredibly fresh, very much a developing, breaking story, Stephen. So we have had, to date, no reactions from the Israelis. And as you heard from the guest who was just speaking there, it's very possible, in fact quite probable, that we won't hear from Israel, unlike with the retaliatory strike we saw earlier last night, earlier on Tuesday evening in Beirut, killing a key Hezbollah commander. Where we had almost instant confirmation from the Israeli military that they participated in that attack. It's very likely that we will not hear from Israel on this particular strike, though it is certainly looking, all accounts from what we're hearing and from what we've been hearing from Hamas and Iran, that it is likely that Israel was responsible for this attack, though we may never get that confirmation from Israel. And this is certainly going to be a shock, if not a surprise, if you can separate those two things. Ismail Haniyeh was certainly very much on the wanted list, on Israel's wanted list, and Israel promised that they would go after the leaders of Hamas in the aftermath of the vicious attack on October 7th, and they have confirmed that's certainly what they have been doing here. Now, we have had some reaction from Hamas. The terror group has confirmed that Ismail Haniyeh was killed in Iran, blaming Israel for that attack, and a spokesman for the group has said this was a cowardly act that will not be in vain. It's something that they were prepared to. They said we're waging an open war to liberate Jerusalem, and we are ready to pay an incredibly high price. So obviously this news is going to be shocking for those across the region, but it may not come as a huge surprise. Ismail Haniyeh was also named by the ICC is the head prosecutor there requesting an arrest warrant for Ismail Haniyeh, along with Yahya Sinwar and Mohammed Deif, two other leaders. Now, Israel claiming that they did, in fact, eliminate Mohammed Deif in an attack a few weeks ago. That has still not been 100% confirmed, but Israel saying that it is more than likely that he was killed in that attack. And now we're seeing another leader, Ismail Haniyeh, also targeted. So the only person left on that ICC list is Yahya Sinwar, who is believed to still be alive in Gaza. Now, of course, this is ratcheting up an already tense time in the region. We are hearing from all accounts, we haven't had final confirmation, but it does appear that unlike what we were hearing with the attack that just happened earlier this evening in Beirut, where Israel was thought to have warned the United States before carrying out that attack, it certainly appears that this attack happened without any prior warning to the United States. Now, one thing that this is, of course, going to affect is the hostage negotiations. Ismail Haniyeh played a key role. He was a key interlocutor in those negotiations for the Hamas side. He often travelled as a delegation, as part of a Hamas delegation, to conduct those talks. Now, obviously, his death is going to play a significant role in those ongoing negotiations.
DW correspondent Rebecca Ritters in Jerusalem. Thank you very much.